Fellow congregants and guests, join me in welcoming for the first time in 153 years, Rabbi David Einhorn.
Rabbi, thanks for coming tonight. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Thank you for asking.
I understand that you were born in Bavaria, but you speak quite good English. How is that?
Well, I died in 1879, so I've had a lot of free time since then to learn English.
But
A lot of dead time, you could say.
you love Germany.
Yes.
And tell me about that.
German was my native tongue. And it also was the language of the great early Jewish reformers. It was also the language of most of the members of Har Sinai when I arrived in 1855. So when I got here, I translated the prayer book into German, and I delivered my sermons in German also.
Now, we're here for a ceremony in your name. Many of us don't know a lot about you. Tell us about your life before you came to Har Sinai.
As soon as I figure out how to use this handset,
They
we didn't
changed
have them
things.
back then, yeah. Can you hear me?
I was born in 1809 in a small town that was part of Bavaria and now is part of Germany. I went to yeshiva and I actually was ordained at the young age of 17. Now this was very, very helpful to me because before I started practicing as a working rabbi, I could go to state universities and study history, and politics, and liberal arts and philosophy. Unlike other graduates of just yeshiva, I was given the ability to question the very fabric of Jewish culture.
Now, you were elected rabbi of 3 different congregations in Bavaria, and one of them in Hungary. What happened there?
Well, wherever I went, I questioned Jewish traditions that I felt had become irrelevant over time. And I questioned governments that worked with excesses and did not accept civil rights of its own people. And as a result, the religious community, the elders of the religious community especially, and the members of the government worked together to shut me down in 4 shuls. And it got to a point in 1853, can you imagine, Judge, that I could not find a synagogue in 1853 in all of Europe that had the guts to hire me. I was too radical.
So what was it about your philosophy that was so different?
I did not believe that we should follow the mere rote repetition of prayers and traditions. I believe that when God gave Moses and the Jewish people the Torah and the 10 Commandments, he also gave them a piece of his soul. And I believe that when every Jewish baby is born, whether it's a boy or a girl, it doesn't matter. What's important is that a piece of God's soul was placed like a diamond in their heart. And so it was our job, and it still is our job as Jews, to take that diamond in our heart and share it with the rest of the world in acts of tikkun olam, healing of the world.
And
that is our mission.
You have proof of that theory?
We all know how small the Jewish population of the world is, and yet we make up much larger than our numbers. We make up doctors, scientists, lawyers, teachers, all the professions. And in spite of our small numbers, we have many, many Nobel Prizes beyond our numbers. This cannot be mere coincidence. This is God's will.
Now, this led you to write a new prayer book. It was called Olat Tamid. Tell us about that.
Well, I will read from my sermon, from the text of my sermon, what I said at my first sermon at Har Sinai in 1855, because I think that says it best. What I said was that the old world is fast crumbling to pieces, and a new world seeks to rise from the ruins. Judaism has reached the turning point which demands the abolition of all defunct usages. So, I stripped away all the repetition in the prayer book. And I took everything out except the bare basics. And do you know that in my time and the time after that for a while, my prayer book was the most popular prayer book in the Jewish Reform movement. And do you know why?
Why is that?
I will show you why. I will do a little display. Now, this is your volume. It's a wonderful volume of the Shabbos service. This is my volume for the entire year. This is my service for Shabbos, right here in this first 45 pages. So it's very popular. If you want to get home for lunch and Shabbos, which would you rather? Right?
That's very efficient. You came to the United States of America in 1855. What did you find you got here?
Finally, after 2 years of being shut down by the evils that attacked me, finally in 1855, I received a letter from a small but growing radical synagogue in Baltimore that asked me to come and accepted me for what I was. They were even more radical than I was. That synagogue was your synagogue, Har Sinai.
What was your position on slavery?
I called slavery the cancer of the Union.
Now, you felt there was no grounds for compromise. You particularly disagreed with the Jewish leaders who called for compromise on slavery.
Here is what I wrote in 1861 about Jewish defenders of slavery. A Jew praises the Lord daily for deliverance out of the Egyptian yoke of slavery. We are obliged to reject the words of these apologists because they are a profanation of God's name.
Now, the members of Har Sinai must have been extraordinary men when you got here. Tell us about the people you found.
I'm going to use one example to tell you about how amazing these people were. One of the founding members was a gentleman by the name of Joseph Simpson. Now, Joseph Simpson came from Prague in about 1828 to the United States. And he became a master gemologist. He was a pioneer in finding new ways to take rock and make them into jewelry. One day he opened a newspaper and he saw that the chief general of the United States at the time, Winfield Scott, was serving as a master of ceremonies for a Christian charitable event. Now, he took umbrage to this. He felt that this was a violation of church and state. So what did he do? He didn't remain silent. He was radical. So you know what he did? He wrote to the president to complain. Now, I'm going to ask you, in the 1850s, any immigrant Jew that would write to the head of the country to complain about the chief general, he would be dead by the next day. Even in my lovely wonderful Bavaria that I love so much, he would not have survived. But in this great country with freedom of speech, it was accepted as being his right to complain.
Now, our rabbi today has a blog. How do you do your message?
Well, we didn't have the internet back then, and we didn't have TV or radio. The only thing we had was newspapers. So within a year of getting to Har Sinai, I bought my own printing press, and I started my own newspaper called the Sinai after Har Sinai. And I would publish my sermons against slavery. But we also covered other things. I may have been one of the first rabbis to speak on behalf of women's rights. This is the 1850s, mind. But there are articles in my newspaper proclaiming the importance of doing this for women. So it was for all groups. And that I was very proud of.
Now then came the pivotal night of April 19, 1861. What happened?
The President of the United States, President Lincoln, out of fear for himself in the White House, asked for troops, Union troops, to come to Washington. And in doing so, troops from Massachusetts had to pass through Baltimore to get to Washington. It was the southern route. Now, the troops had to walk across Pratt Street, where they had to march to get to Camden Station, which is now a portion of Camden Yards of Baltimore Oriole. So, when they were marching on Pratt Street, they got to the corner of Pratt and Gay, and they were attacked by a mob of Confederate sympathizers. In all, 4 Union troops died that day on Pratt Street. They represented the first Union troops to die in the Civil War, right on Pratt Street in Baltimore. Well, the mob was emboldened by their action, and so they drew up a list of people that they wanted to kill next. And I am proud to say that I was at the top of that list. First, they destroyed my printing press, and then they came looking for me. And of course, for the sake of my family, I had to go north to Philadelphia, where I stayed for the remainder of the Civil War.
Did you ever come back to Baltimore?
After the war was over, I received a very nice letter from the Board of Trustees of Har Sinai. And they asked me to come back, but they also asked me to tone down my language.
What was your response?
I do not tone down my language for anyone. If I see an injustice, I don't tone down, I ramp up. Life is too short, and there are too many needs in the world to tiptoe around people's feelings. I may have insulted people, but it was because it was the only way to get the attention to the cause that needed to be solved and to perform those acts of tikkun olam.
So what did you do then?
I went north to a Reformed synagogue in New York, where I served out the rest of my time.
And what do you think of tonight's honorees of the award, which has been named in your honor?
These people represent the finest of the community and deserve the accolades that they are receiving today. They have made tikkun olam their mission in life on behalf of Har Sinai, on behalf of the Jewish community, and the community at large. I am particularly honored to stand here to say this about 2 rabbis. Rabbi Israel, blessed be his name, and Rabbi Herman. I thank him for the opportunity to be part of this ceremony.
Any vital thoughts.
Yes. Remember that in each one of us is a piece of God's soul. And remember that each one of us can perform acts of tikkun olam, no matter how small, that can make a difference in the world. But most of all, if we follow in the footsteps of the people that we're honoring here tonight, we